The Veterans Day ceremony at the Fort Bragg Community Center was winding down. When Daniel Cross slipped in through the back door, he'd seen the flyer at the shelter, seen the words "All Veterans Welcome," and decided to take a chance. Maybe there'd be food afterward. Maybe he could sit in a warm room for an hour and remember what it felt like to belong somewhere. At 61, with arthritis in his knees and a cough that wouldn't quit, Daniel didn't ask for much anymore. He found a seat in the last row, trying to make himself small, invisible. His coat was clean but worn, his jeans had patches, and he hadn't been able to afford a haircut in months. The families in front of him were dressed nice. Their veteran relatives in pressed uniforms or VFW jackets covered in medals. Daniel had nothing like that. He'd lost everything years ago, including his uniform, his medals, and his dignity. All he had left were memories and a call sign that nobody remembered anymore. The general took the stage, 3 stars gleaming on his shoulders. Major General Robert Hayes, commander of the Airborne Corps. He spoke about service and sacrifice, about brotherhood and honor, standard ceremony stuff. But then he did something unexpected. I'd like to invite any Vietnam veterans in the audience to stand. Let's recognize your service. About 20 men stood, scattered throughout the room. The general led the applause, then asked them to share their names and units. One by one, they spoke, names and divisions. Some got extra applause for units people recognized. Then the general's eyes landed on Daniel in the back row. "Sir, you're standing. Would you share your name and unit?" Daniel felt every eye in the room turn toward him. He saw the way people looked at him, at his shabby clothes and weathered face, and he saw the doubt. Saw them wondering if he was really a veteran or just a homeless man looking for a free meal. What happened next would either vindicate Daniel's 23 years of silence or expose him as something he'd never been, a fake. If you've ever been judged by your appearance and forced to prove your worth, stay with me. Daniel's voice came out rough, quiet. Daniel Cross. MACV-SOG. Call sign Phantom 6. The room didn't just go quiet. It went dead silent. Every veteran in the room knew those words. MACV-SOG. Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. The most classified, most dangerous operations of the Vietnam War. Teams inserted deep into Laos and Cambodia, behind enemy lines, doing things the government still wouldn't acknowledge. And Phantom 6 wasn't just any call sign. It was legendary. The general's face had gone pale. He walked down from the stage, moving through the crowd toward Daniel. "Say that again, sir. Your call sign." Daniel met his eyes. "Phantom 6. I commanded Recon Team Python. 69 to 71. 37 missions across the fence." The general's hand came up in a sharp salute. "Sir, it is an honor." He turned to the room, his voice carrying. For those who don't know, Phantom 6 ran some of the most dangerous missions in the war. His team had a 90% survival rate when the average was 40%. He brought his men home. And he did it with such efficiency that NVA Command put a bounty on his head. This man is a living legend. The room erupted. Veterans stood, saluting. Younger soldiers who'd heard the stories in training looked at Daniel with awe. Families who'd been judgmental minutes ago were clapping. Daniel stood there, overwhelmed, as the general gripped his shoulder. "Sir, why are you in the back row? Why aren't you on this stage?" Daniel's voice cracked. "Because I'm homeless, General. Have been for 15 years. I lost my way after the war. PTSD, drinking, lost my family. I'm not the man I was. I'm just trying to get by." The general's jaw tightened. "You're still Phantom 6. You're still the man who brought 37 teams home. That doesn't change because life knocked you down." He raised his voice. "This man saved hundreds of lives in the war, and we let him end up homeless? That ends today." He pulled out his phone, made a call right there. "Colonel Martinez, this is General Hayes. I need the name of our best VA liaison, and I need transitional housing arranged immediately. Today. I don't care what it takes. If this moment moves you, if you believe that those who served deserve more than gratitude, share this story, because words without action mean nothing." Within hours, Daniel was in a VA office. Within days, he had an apartment. Within weeks, his disability claims that had been ignored for years were processed and approved. But more than that, the general brought him to Fort Bragg, asked him to speak to Special Forces candidates about leadership under pressure, asked him to share his stories with soldiers who needed to understand what real courage looked like. Daniel found himself valued again, needed, respected. The general visited him often in those first months. One evening, sitting in Daniel's modest apartment, the general asked the question that had been bothering him. "Sir, how did someone like you end up on the streets? With your record, you should have been taken care of." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "The things we did in MACV SOG, they were classified. When I came home, I couldn't talk about any of it. Couldn't get treatment for PTSD because I couldn't tell therapists what I'd done. The nightmares got worse. The drinking started. My wife left, took the kids. I lost my job, and I was too proud to ask for help, too broken to know where to start. So I just disappeared. Figured nobody would miss Phantom 6. Figured I'd already been erased from history anyway." The general shook his head. "You were never erased, sir. We tell your stories in the Special Warfare School. We teach your tactics. Phantom 6 is a legend in the Special Forces community. We just didn't know where you were, or we would have come looking sooner." Daniel smiled sadly. "Maybe I didn't want to be found. Maybe I was ashamed of what I'd become. Hard to live up to a legend when you're sleeping under a bridge." 2 years later, Daniel stood on stage at Fort Bragg's Special Warfare Center, speaking to a room full of green berets about leadership, sacrifice, and the cost of war. He wore a suit now, lived in a decent apartment, had regular VA care for his PTSD, but more important than any of that, he had purpose again. He had people who saw him not as a homeless man, but as Phantom 6, the leader who brought his men home against impossible odds. After the talk, a young sergeant approached him. "Sir, my grandfather served in MACV SOG. He told me stories about Phantom 6 before he died. Said you were the reason he made it home. Said you pulled his team out of an ambush in Laos, came back for them when everyone else said they were lost. His name was Martinez." Daniel felt tears in his eyes. "I remember Martinez. Good soldier, kept his head when everything went to hell. I'm glad he made it home. Glad he had a family. The sergeant's voice shook. Because of you, sir. Because you came back. He had 50 more years, 3 kids, 8 grandchildren. All because Phantom 6 didn't leave anyone behind. And now I'm serving because he inspired me. That's your legacy, sir. In a world that forgets its heroes, that allows decorated veterans to become invisible on our streets, Daniel's story reminds us that call signs, medals, and service records don't keep people warm at night or put food in their stomachs. We owe more than recognition. We owe action. If this story moved you, support organizations that help homeless veterans. Advocate for better VA services. And when you see a homeless veteran, remember that they might be someone's Phantom 6, someone who sacrificed everything and received nothing in return. A general asked a homeless veteran his call sign. He whispered Phantom 6, and the room froze because they realized they'd been in the presence of a legend and hadn't even known it. How many more legends are we walking past every day? Thank you for believing that service deserves more than applause. It deserves action, support, and the promise that we'll never let another hero disappear into the shadows.